Welcome to this tutorial video on Microsoft Word 2019, a tour. Microsoft Word is a very versatile software that can do amazing things. However, it can be a bit intimidating because of all of its functions. This video is designed to give you a basic understanding of how the software is organized with a specific focus on the ribbon. Specifically, after you complete watching this video, you'll be able to define Microsoft Word, in other words, what it is and what it's used for. You'll be able to explain how Microsoft Word is organized so that you'll know where everything is and what it's called. And then finally, you'll be able to identify the various parts of the ribbon, which is the main area of the software where all of the functions are located. Let's begin by talking about what Microsoft Word is and what it's used for. Microsoft Word is a word processing software program. It can be used to create a variety of documents that were once created with a typewriter. The bulleted list you see here are just a few of the examples of what you can use Microsoft Word for. The most common things I have found people using Microsoft Word for are to write letters, and also to type up book manuscripts. But of course, the uses for Microsoft Word are practically endless. Now, let's do a tour of the Microsoft Word software so that you'll know where everything is located and what it's called. We'll begin our tour in the upper left-hand corner of the software with the Quick Access Toolbar. The Quick Access Toolbar is a customizable command menu that is visible at all times while you're working with the software. If you click on the down arrow on the right side of the toolbar, it displays a drop-down menu where you can add or subtract buttons off of the toolbar. So right now, the Save button, the Undo button, and the Redo button are currently visible on the toolbar. If I decide I'd like to add the Print Preview and Print button, I simply need to click on that option, and Microsoft Word adds that button to my toolbar. If I decide I no longer want that option, I can click on the down arrow again, go to that option, and click on it. And then that particular button is gone. So, play around with the Quick Access Toolbar. Add and subtract buttons off of it depending on which commands you're going to use most often in Microsoft Word. One command on this menu that is definitely worth mentioning is the Undo function. The Undo function is currently on the toolbar, and it looks like a backward-facing arrow. This button will be your best friend as you start to learn the Microsoft Word software. If you click on something accidentally that you didn't mean to do, just click Undo, and it's like it never happened. Also, if you're playing around with some of the functions, for example, maybe in the font function and you click on the B button, what does this B do? And then you decide that you don't like that. You can just click Undo, and it's like it never happened. So keep that Undo button in that Quick Access Toolbar. As you're learning, it will be used quite a bit, I'm sure. The next stop on our tour is the ribbon. The ribbon is located across the top of the screen and contains all of the commands that you will need to perform the most basic functions in Microsoft Word. The ribbon is divided into tabs, such as the File tab, the Home tab, or the Insert tab, etc. And each one of these tabs is divided into groups. On the Home tab, we have a grouping for clipboard, a font group, a paragraph group, etc. We're going to cover the ribbon in a lot more detail later on in the video. The next stop on our tour is the document viewing window, which is this area right in here. It's where you're going to create and format all of your documents. The next stop on the tour is located in the lower left-hand corner, and this is the page counter. The page counter tells you what page you're currently on out of the total number of pages in your document. For example, If you have a 10-page document and you're currently working on the 5th page in the document viewing window, the page counter would read 5 of 10. To the right of the page counter is the word counter. The word counter tells you how many words are in your document. The word counter is most often used by students who need to create essays or maybe research papers that need to be a certain number of characters. To the right-hand side, we have the layout buttons. The layout buttons change how your document is viewed in the document viewing window. For example, if I clicked on Read Mode, it changes how my document is displayed, and now it looks more like a book. If I click on Print Layout, that goes back to the way I had it before. It shows how my document would look on a printed page. And then, if I clicked on Web Layout, this is how my document would look on a web page. Most oftentimes, people use the print layout. When they're creating documents in Microsoft Word, ultimately, most of their documents are going to be printed. So they want to know how it's going to look on a printed page. So this layout is generally the most useful. Down in the lower right-hand corner, the next stop on our tour takes us to the zoom function. The zoom buttons allow us to zoom into and out of our document viewing window, in essence, making our document window a little bigger or a little smaller. There are a couple of ways to zoom into and out of your document. You can click on the minus sign here, and that will zoom you out, and click on the plus sign over on the right-hand side to zoom back in. You can also click, hold, and drag the bar in between the plus sign and the minus sign to zoom out or zoom back in. The goal really is to get your document to a size that makes it comfortable for you to work with. And the final stop on our tour is the scroll bar on the right-hand side. The scroll bar allows you to move the document viewing window up or down through the document. As you can see, there is more to this document than what is shown in the document viewing window at any one time. So I can click on the down arrow to scroll down through my document to see the rest of it. Well, that concludes our tour of the overall software. So now I thought we would focus more on the ribbon, since the ribbon is so important in using Microsoft Word effectively. As I stated earlier, the ribbon contains the menus for all of the commands that you will need to perform tasks in Microsoft Word. The ribbon is divided into tabs, such as the File tab, the Home tab, the Insert tab, etc. And each of these tabs is divided into groups. So on the Home tab, for example, we have a clipboard group, a font group, a paragraph group, etc. Now, some of these groups may have additional functions that are not even displayed on the ribbon because there's simply not room for them. If you notice in any grouping a down arrow pointing down and to the right, that means that there are additional functions in that grouping that would not fit on the ribbon. By clicking on that arrow, it will display a pop-up window where you can access all of the functions that belong in that group, whether they're on the ribbon or not. So if there's a function that you're looking for and you suspect that it's in a particular tab, in a particular grouping, but you can't find it in there, see if there's a down arrow in the lower right-hand corner of the group. There may be some additional functions you can access that way. So let's now look at each one of these tabs so that you'll have a general understanding of what kinds of commands can be found on each of them. By clicking on the File tab, you can access the various file functions. For example, from here, you can open a file, save a file, print a file, or close a file. There are some other options in here as well. The most common functions used on this particular tab are the save function and the print function. As you're working on documents, be sure to save often so that you don't lose any of the changes or the work that you've done. And then, if you need to print it, this is where you'll find the print function. The next tab is the Home tab. Clicking on the Home tab allows you to access your clipboard, various font formatting functions, paragraph formatting functions, style formatting functions, and even some editing functions. I would highly recommend that you play with these functions to see what they do. And if they do something that you weren't intending, you always have your undo button. The font grouping is one of the most commonly used ones in Microsoft Word because it allows you to change the font that you're using for your text. You can make things bold, italicized, and even change the color and size of your text. So the font grouping is used a lot on the Home tab. The next tab is the Insert tab. Clicking on the Insert tab allows you to access a variety of features that can be inserted into a document, such as tables, pictures, clip art, page numbers, and many, many more. Adding some of these elements can add a bit of flair to your documents, or even help you to organize them with headers and footers and table of contents. The next tab is the Design tab. By clicking on the Design tab, you can access features to change the overall design of your document, such as themes and maybe even page borders. These tend to be a little bit more useful in Microsoft PowerPoint, which is another Microsoft software program. It does slideshows, and the themes and things like that usually work a little bit better in Microsoft PowerPoint. However, they are here in Microsoft Word should you have a need for them. The next tab is the Layout tab. Clicking on the Layout tab allows you to access functions to manage and arrange your documents, such as page margins, page orientation, line spacing, and many more. For example, you would use functions on this tab if you needed to double space a paragraph or maybe apply 1-inch margins to the entire document. Next, we have the References tab. Clicking on the References tab allows you to access various commands that help you to document your work, such as footnotes, citations, table of contents, and more. These functions tend to be most useful for those who are writing reference books or maybe how-to manuals or possibly even research papers for school. The next tab is the Mailings tab. Clicking on the Mailings tab allows you to access functions for documents that are designed to be mailed, such as envelopes or even shipping labels. You can use mail merge fields and documents using this tab. So this makes things easier when you're doing mass mailings of either letters or postcards, sometimes even Christmas cards. The next tab is the Review tab. Clicking on the Review tab allows you to access commands for proofreading and editing your documents. There are quite a few commands on this particular tab, but the most common one is the spelling and grammar check, which is located on the left-hand side. By clicking on this, Microsoft Word will scan your entire document and check it for spelling errors and for grammar errors. However, don't rely completely on that spell check. You'll still need to proofread your document because the spell check does miss things from time to time. Next is the View tab. The View tab allows you to access the commands that change how your document looks in the viewing window. You'll see that the layout buttons that we went over earlier are located here as well. And then also the zoom function is located here as well. Since these commands are located at the bottom right-hand corner at all times, most folks use the commands at the right-hand corner as opposed to going to the View menu. However, on the View tab, there are some other view options that you may want to play with. The final tab is the Help tab. By clicking on the Help tab, you can access various help features that are embedded in Microsoft Word, including even a training section. By clicking on Show Training, if your computer is connected to the internet, you can go to Microsoft's website and watch tutorial videos much like this one, and those will help you to use Microsoft Word a little bit better. And then finally, we have the Tell Me What You Want Me to Do. This is not a tab per se, but it is a tool that you can use in Microsoft Word. It allows you to type a description of what you want to do, and a list of commands are going to appear in a drop-down menu so that you don't have to try and find them on the ribbon. So for example, if I want to change the margins of my page, I can click Change Margins, and this button appears. So when I point my mouse at Adjust Margins, here are some options for me to adjust the margins of my document, and I can do so right from here instead of trying to find the Margins button on the ribbon. So that concludes Microsoft Word 2019, a tour. Microsoft Word is filled with a variety of functions, and it takes a while to familiarize yourself with all of them. Hopefully, by watching this video, you feel as though you have at least a foundational understanding of the functions and where to find them. Keep practicing. Don't forget the undo button, and the more you use it, the easier it'll get. Good luck.